Hi, today we're going to cover a few different modifications that might be helpful for you if you're trying to do Pilates mat work, and maybe some of the positions that you see me or any other instructor get into don't quite work for your body. Either your body's not stretchy enough or not strong enough yet, or it's just got some delicate, sensitive areas. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to start with your neck. We're gonna talk about your legs and your hip flexors a little bit, kind of in somewhere in there, a little bit of hamstrings, and then we'll end with your knees. All right, so let's, you don't have to go down to the mat, but I'm gonna demonstrate by me rolling down to the mat. One of the things, I should tell you first, is it's really handy if you have a towel nearby. Now this is a bath, let's see, like a hand towel, a largish hand towel that I keep nearby when I'm doing mat work. You may not have one exactly this size. A kitchen towel would work, but this can be really handy help and doesn't cost too much money because there's usually one somewhere in your house. All right, so once you've got your handy dandy towel, I want you to go ahead and lay down or just watch me. And you're just gonna lay down on your mat. A lot of videos, we might start standing, but we go down to our back at the first in the workouts. So when you're here, sometimes lifting the head and shoulders and the neck can start to really put a lot of strain on your neck, or keeping it elevated can be a lot of strain. So one of the things you can do first, if the exercise doesn't have you doing this, you can just work on just putting the hands behind the head. Now, when you do this hands behind the head, I want you to put one hand over the other, and your thumbs are going to go on the outside of those poked out neck tendons. Those are those two ridges that are coming up the back of your neck. So you're going to be right outside of those, and your thumbs will be right in that hollow there. And then let your head lay back. Let your elbows come slightly forward. So now your head kind of has a cradle in your arms, right? When you bring your head up, you want to make sure that your chin comes down first. So the first thing you want to think of when you're lifting your head is nod your chin and then lift up. Now with this hands behind your head, you can use the hands to help you. And then when you lower down, you're going to lower it down using those head and hand connections. All right. So remember, chin goes down and then you start to lift, and the hands help lift the head. Then if you have to stay there for a while, sometimes that really starts to strain the neck. Maybe it's an exercise where you're doing something with your hands and you can't put your hands behind your head. So I'm going to put my head down again, and I'm going to show you another help. So you can take your handy dandy towel here, and you can use it almost like a sling, but behind your head. So take the towel and make it so that it kind of cups around the back of your head. Adjust it whatever feels good for you, and then grab it, right? And I have a ponytail in there, and you can pull it up, and you can use it here. I'm going to start again. One more time. Hi, today we're going to be covering some modifications that might be helpful for you if you're doing some Pilates mat work, or maybe some other kind of exercises where you need some help for areas that are weak, maybe aren't as flexible yet as they could be, or maybe they're just kind of delicate. And those can particularly be the neck, right? The legs or the hip flexors, and then of course those knees. Now, we've covered the wrists in another video because there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about with the wrists. So if you need help with the wrists, go look for that other video. It should be planking without pain and wrist pain modifications, or modifications for wrist pain. Anyway, so we're going to start by talking about some of the things that you can do to help your neck, lift your neck, or support your neck. So to start with, I always have a nice towel nearby. This is a largish hand towel. You could use something bigger if you wanted, or you could use a kitchen towel. It really depends on what your needs are, but a towel can be a really handy prop to have nearby anytime, and you can always use it to mop up if you're getting really sweaty, or your mat if your mat gets sweaty. All right, so we've got our handy dandy towel. We're going to go lay down on the mat, and we're just going to lay down with our head down. So the first thing we need to think of when we lift our head is that our chin always needs to nod down first, and then we lift up, trying to use these muscles pressing down to lift up. Now, most of the times when we lift our head, not all of them, we might have our hands behind our head. It's not necessarily always true, but you can use the hands behind the head to help give you a little bit more support. So when you put your hands behind your head, I want you to put one palm flat on top of the other. Your thumbs are going to be sticking out. And then when you put the hands behind your head, I want those thumbs to go right into the hollows on the outside of those ridges going down the back of your neck. Those are your neck tendons. And I want your thumbs right outside of them. So now you've got a nice little cradle for your head. Let your head go back and let your elbows be up slightly. Don't take them too far out to the side. Make sure your back is nice and not firmly pressed into the mat, but that it's connected. So what I want you to do is take an inhale, and then on the exhale, nod the chin down, and then lift with the head and the hands, bringing that upper body up, and then with control, bring it down. And you can stop the video here if you want to try that a few times. Remember, the trick is what we really want to teach the body. Instead of lifting straight up from the back of your head, we want to think chin down and then lift, because that's going to engage that middle body. And we want these muscles to start supporting that neck. All right, and then with control, come down. Let's do that one more time. So chin nods down, right? We start to push down into the mat with our back, and we lift up. Nice. And then bring it back on down. Now, another way that we can lift is we can use our handy dandy towel here, and we can open it up a little bit, and then just take it around back of our head, kind of like like a sling around your head. Your elbows would be out to the side, and they can bring your hands in as close as you need to, or you can leave them out, and you would do the same thing. So you're going to nod the chin down, right? The head lifts a little bit. And now with the elbows pointing slightly forward, use that sling to help bring your head forward. And then if you have other exercises to do here, you can use the hands. They'll be a little farther out from the head, and you can still keep that head supported. Let it come on down. All right, you want to try that one more time? So again, remember, the key is chin nod and then lift, so that we engage those muscles right under the rib cage, right? You got it. And just lift and hold, keeping the lower back and mid back strong into the mat, and then let it come down. Now I'm going to get rid of my towel for a moment, but I'm going to fold it back up. And then we're going to talk about if you're in an exercise where you're lifted, or you're grabbing a leg, or you're doing some stuff, and you start to feel that your neck or head hurts, then what you want to do is just let your head go down. You can still keep moving your arms and your legs, right? But you can do it with your head down. And then when you're ready and you feel like, oh, I'm back at it again, then chin nods down and we lift up and we keep on moving. Nice. All right, so now let's look at what happens sometimes when you're laying down on your front. Sometimes people have an issue too with neck strain when they're doing prone exercises. So it's the same thing. If you lift up, you want to start to nod the chin out and then lift from the back and the tummy and then lower it down. Again, you're going to almost like you're rolling a ball, lift it, but don't extend the neck too far. And then from the mid back, and you can use the arms to help you, you lift. Now don't let the chin and the head extend too far out. That's kind of hyperextended, and we want to keep them down. So if you're doing a prone exercise, your eyes should just be looking slightly in front of your hands, maybe towards the front of your mat, not way out here. because that can contribute to neck pain too. But if you're in this position and you're doing something prone, kick, 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 or doing some stuff, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is really starting to bug my neck or my head, because you know your head's a pretty heavy object, then just bring your head down, or you can use a pillow or your handy dandy towel and put it right under your sternum and give yourself a little lift, but not as big as before, and keep doing the exercises. So now you've got some support here, right? And you've still got that lift in the upper torso, in the arms and shoulders, but you don't have as much strain. And of course, if it gets too much, then just put your head down and keep the movement going, whatever you're doing, and lift it back up when you're ready. All right, so that's some head or neck modifications. Let's talk about when you're sitting. Now, when you're sitting, sometimes the back of your legs can get really tight, your hamstrings, or the front of your legs, your hip flexors can get really tight. So one of the things I hear most, a lot of times is from guys, complaints, is that when they're having to do exercises sitting, they feel like it just gets really achy in here. So the trick to that is to give yourself a little lift. So you could use the towel if it's enough lift. Let me see if I can sit back far enough so that you can see my legs. And then make sure that the legs are slightly bent, right? And that little lift can be just enough to take a little bit of the pressure off of those achy hip flexors. Now, if that's not enough, then what I tell people they can also do is they can roll up their mat, because the mat might give them even more lift. And they can roll it up pretty high if they want to, or they can get a pillow and they can sit on that, and then they can take their legs out while they're doing exercises that are sitting. And that can help with a little bit of pain. We'll also have the knees bent a little bit. You know, optimally we go to straight, but that doesn't always happen for everybody. So just let them be bent at first. That's fine, right? All right, so that's to help a little bit with the hip flexors. Now the hamstrings, which is the back of the legs under the bum, they can be really tight too. So like you saw, I was bending the legs when I had my legs out straight, but sometimes we're laying down and our legs, I'll say something like, let's get our legs straight up in the air. And that isn't something that's really working. So just let the legs bend to whatever they can do, and then do the movement with the legs bent. I'm going to come forward in this fancy little transition. One of the things that we do is called open leg rocker. And not everybody on open leg rocker can take their legs straight out to a V, like this. So what we can do instead is we can grab behind the thighs, have our elbows bent, right? And then just leave the legs slightly bent like this, so that we can adjust or modify for those tight hamstrings as we go back and forth, because this is a rocking exercise. Let's imagine we're laying down. Maybe we're going to do one leg circle. One leg's up in the air. Now, if you can't straighten the leg, just bend that leg, but still move it around. Get those juices flowing into that joint so that we can start to get more stretch and strength in the back of the legs. All right, so that's a little bit for the hamstrings and a little bit for the hip flexors. So the most exciting one now is the knees. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it always happens when you get older. Sometimes younger people have knee issues too. Mine started when I was in my 30s or 20s, I can't remember. Anyway, so there's a few different things that you can do for the knees. A lot of times this has to do with if we're doing something on all fours. Usually that's not quite as bad as when we're just straight out kneeling. So again, that handy dandy towel can come in very useful. You can use it, fold it however you like. You can make it thicker if you want, and roll it up, and you adjust it for what your knees like, right? A lot of times you don't want the padding to be right on top of that kneecap, because that might put a little too much pressure on there, but just adjust your feet or your legs back and forth so that you feel like you've got a little bit of cushion there where maybe there isn't as much cushion inside the joint now, right? You can adjust your legs too. You might not be able to see this, But for some people, adjusting what their legs are doing behind them can make a difference. So for some people, putting their feet together can help with how the knees feel. Some people feel better if the knees are, or the legs are apart, the feet are apart. And you just have to play with that and see what works for you. If you forget your towel, you can always roll up your mat. I don't know if you've thought of that, but maybe after I showed you the thing with the hip flexors, you might have noticed that. So you're in the middle of a workout and all of a sudden the teacher says, all right, we're going to come to kneeling and we're going to be doing thigh stretch. So just roll that mat up a little bit. You might not need it rolled up quite as much as this. Adjust your feet and your legs to what works for you. And then start to do the exercise as you can. And adjust if you need to for your knees, right? We do want to keep that knee joint moving. We do want that range of motion in there because that keeps more juices and more lubrication happening. And even if it feels like it's bone on bone or cartilage on cartilage, if we don't keep moving it, then we don't get as much fluid in there and that makes it feel worse. All right, so hopefully those modifications were a little bit of a help. If you think of anything else that you'd like a little bit of help with or something else that you need a modification with, then just shoot me an email, send me a message. I'm sure it's on the website here somewhere, but I'd be happy to go over it with you. And if you're on a live workout, you can always ask me beforehand when I log in. All right, modifications for the neck, for the hips, for the hamstrings, and for the knees today. Thanks.